learning experience. Everybody here treats me nice. Community's nice. I just love the city.
A lot of the coaches, your name comes up as one of the guys that's been impressive so far. How do you feel like you've played so far, and the early impression that you've made on the coaches so far in camp?
I just came out here just to play ball. That's what they recruited you for. So just trying to get adjusted, get settled in, get comfortable, and just contribute to the team really.
Hurst was saying that you made a really good first impression with the players just coming in this summer and attitude and your approach. Was that something you set out to do, or just kind of the way you are that it kind of fit with what was going on here? Or?
It's kind of just the way I am. It's also how they are too. They treated me like family. Like as soon as I came in, there was nothing there was no awkwardness. They all asked me hey, how's it going? How are you? Made sure I had everything I need. They just treated me really nicely.
How did it kind of come about in terms of you coming here? It sounds like Hurst said they were recruiting you maybe more for next year, and then all of a sudden, but what kind of happened there?
I was just at my JUCO in Arizona, Scottsdale Community College, and I was just going through spring ball, and I was honestly planning on playing another year at JUCO, and then Boise came around and they started the recruiting process. As one thing led to another. Ultimately, they gave me the opportunity to commit, and I just committed here.
What allowed you to come right away?
I was a qualifier.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how'd you end up at JC to start with, or why'd you go there?
Out of high school, I didn't really have the offers that I wanted. I had a couple of D2 offers and some JUCO offers, and I just sat down with my family and we talked it over, and they just told me it'll all pay off in the end. It might be a long grueling run, but it'll pay off in the end because ultimately I wanted to go D1. That was my ultimate goal.
You've got, I'm sure you've heard many times, the stats don't jump off the page, which you've done the last couple of years. Were you in offenses that didn't throw the ball much, or what? What happened there?
I was in offense. We threw the ball a lot. We wrapped up the yards a lot. It was just I just had a lot of maturing to do. That was mainly the thing. I just had a lot of maturing to do on the field. You got to learn how to play fast, play smart, just things like that.
What do you bring to this offense, the wide receiver position? What do you hope that you can bring to this team?
I just hope to play any part they need me to play. Play fast, like I said, play fast. That's most important. Explode off the ball, things like that, and just contribute any way that I can.
How's kind of the playbook and the learning the offense, kind of the speed of fall camp and stuff? How are you adjusting to all that?
I'm actually adjusting better than I thought. There's a lot of pressure going in new and not knowing as much as everybody else. But the coaches, they help you out. So I've been learning pretty good, I would say.
Over the summer, do you spend extra time, I guess, trying to catch up in the playbook side?
Yeah, of course.
With the three starters back, there's kind of all this uncertainty about what's behind it, and talking to players and coaches, it seems like you guys are pretty confident in the group you have at wide receiver for some depth. What have you seen out of that kind of that second tier of guys at wide receiver?
I think all of us can play. We're all, we all bring certain things to the table, and that's what I really like. And, we're all really smart football players. That's what another unique thing about our group.
Coaches talk about your size being an asset. Is that something that maybe is something a little different you can bring to this group?
I guess I would say so, but even it doesn't matter, how big you are really. It's just like Shane, he's not the biggest guy, but he plays big. So size doesn't matter. It's just all about going out there and playing ball and doing what you do.
How do you look at this opportunity? I mean, you thought maybe you'd be playing another year at Scottsdale, and now you come back and you're in these facilities and this program, and so the stage you're going to be on TV and stuff this year. How do you kind of look at the opportunity you have, and how you kind of hope to make the most of it?
I think it's a blessing, honestly. A blessing from God, because this is, like I said before, this is my ultimate goal since I was a kid. It happened so urgently that I just can't just thank God. That's all I do. And, I just can't wait to get to work out there.
You still kind of shake your head at all, and kind of maybe you haven't had that moment yet because you haven't had a game, but just to be here, and you said you got here maybe a little faster than you thought. Do you still kind of have that moment, maybe maybe the first time you got here or something, where it's just still hard to believe, how it's kind of turned out so far? Or?
I have a moment every day. I would say I have that moment every day. Every day I come in here and I just look with all the that they help us with, what they provide us for, and just looking at the blue and things like that. I have that moment every day. Yeah.
What was it like for you, a year and a half or so ago when you thought you were a college football player and couldn't get the offers that you thought you deserved? What was that like for you to deal with?
It was tough, but everybody goes through lows. Everybody goes through highs and stuff like that. It was just I just knew that I couldn't let it stop me, and that I had to keep working, and I knew that eventually I would get to where I want to be if I just work hard.
Three weeks from today, the first game, you thought about what it's going to be like to run out there with a full stadium and to be up there on the blue playing in a game?
Yeah, I think about it. But I don't think about it too much. I don't want to add more pressure to myself than I need to. But I like to visualize it sometimes, just to, even when we're out there practicing. Sometimes I just look around, I think about it, just to get that kind of feel for it.
You a guy that can play some special teams too? I mean, are you doing any of that, or are you just strictly a wide receiver right now? Or?
Yeah, I can play some special teams. They have me somewhere in the depth chart. I'm not really out there right now, but I can get out there. If they need me to do that, I'll do it.
What was the hardest adjustment from Scottsdale to Boise, whether school or training or cities?
I would say training. Training, is different. It's a higher level. You have to do different things. It's always going from one program to the next. You're doing different lifts, different runs, things like that. So I would say training.
Did anybody else try to get you to come in this year? Or was Boise State the only one that recruited you for this year?
Texas State was looking at me. I just started talking to Texas Abilene University, Abilene Christian University. Just started talking to them too. But Boise was the ones that really were making moves and keeping in contact with me. And the coaches are great people. That's one thing I really liked about this place.
Did you thought about leaving early, or did they just bring it up and you're like, oh yeah, I guess I could do that? Or
no, my plan was to leave early.
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah. I was trying to do one and done, but I wasn't gonna settle for less than what I felt like I deserved or what I could earn. And Boise came around, and I've always been a big fan of Boise. My friend Brandon, he already goes here. We went to the same high school, so it was a no-brainer for me when they gave me the opportunity to come here.
He's a student here or an athlete here?
Yeah, he's a safety here.
Oh, okay.
Brandon Brown here.
Okay.
Any significance to 17, or is that just hanging in your locker when you got here? Or?
It was just hanging in my locker when I got here, and you know what? I liked it. I was like, I can do this. I like 17. 17 reasons.